Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You've handed us, well, quite a stack of sources today, and we're diving headfirst into something really changing how a lot of us work. Large language models, LLMs, right, in the workplace.
That's right. And we've got this pretty comprehensive report to guide us. It's called LLMs in the Workplace: Productivity Boost or Chaos.
Hmm.
Looks like he gets into the real nitty-gritty.
Yeah, it seems to go beyond just the hype, which is good. Based on like actual companies, their experiences using tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, maybe even their own internal models.
Exactly. So the mission today really is to cut through all that noise, give you the ground level view of what's actually happening.
What's working, what's not working, maybe spectacularly not working in some cases, and just how companies are trying to figure this all out. It's moving so
Right.
fast.
And the report seems to frame this core tension right up front.
Yeah.
This huge potential for gains, right?
Right.
Versus the very real risks: misuse, bad outputs, governance headaches.
Productivity boost or chaos. It's right there in the title. So, yeah, let's unpack that. Where should we start? The potential.
Makes sense. Let's start at the positive. The report is definitely optimistic about the productivity promise if these tools are used correctly.
Yeah, it argues they can seriously accelerate key tasks, not just a little bit faster, but like dramatically faster.
Across quite a few areas, actually.
Yeah.
Content generation is the obvious one. Drafting emails, marketing stuff, internal comms, getting something on the page.
Right, overcoming the blank page problem, that's huge for writers and developers too, right? Code completion.
Big time. Tools like GitHub Copilot, suggesting code, writing boilerplate functions.
Mm.
It cuts down so much manual work.
Yeah.
Same for documentation, which, let's be honest, developers often hate doing.
Yeah, tell me about it. And research too, like summarizing things.
Yeah, summarizing long documents, pulling out key info, even just brainstorming different angles. It's like having a research assistant on tap.
Okay, so the report gives some concrete examples of this.
It does. One really good one is about engineering teams using GitHub Copilot at, I think it was a mid-sized tech firm.
Oh yeah, what did they find?
Well, for the junior developers, it was a pretty significant speed boost, something like 40% faster, mostly on writing that repetitive boilerplate code.
40%. Wow. Okay, so it handles the grunt work, letting them focus on the actual problem?
Exactly. Less time on syntax, more time on logic. It lowers the barrier to getting started, less friction.
Makes sense. What about the senior devs? Did they see the same boost?
Not quite the same way. The report says they didn't necessarily get 40% faster on like complex architecture,
Right.
but they did use it for faster prototyping.
Ah, okay, so like spinning up a quick test or scaffolding an idea.
Precisely. Need to try something in a different language or framework. Copilot can generate the basic structure in seconds, so they could evaluate ideas much faster without getting bogged down in the setup.
So it's not replacing their expertise at all.
Not at all. It's augmenting it,
Yeah.
removing friction, speeding up exploration.
That really fits the idea the report seems to be pushing. LLMs as assistants, right? Handling the repetitive stuff.
That's the key theme emerging. And it comes up again in the other big example: they use marketing content. This is a global B2B SaaS company.
Okay, what was their challenge? Just creating lots of content.
Yeah, tons of it. And needing it personalized. Different emails for different segments, blog variations, landing pages. Doing that manually takes forever.
Right. So they brought in an LLM.
They did. Sounds like something similar to ChatGPT. And they used it mainly for drafting. And getting that first version out quickly, generating variations for testing or personalization.
And the result?
A reported 60% reduction in content creation time. 60.
Whoa. Okay, that's not just helpful. That's potentially game-changing for a marketing team.
Absolutely. It unlocks scale, agility. They can test more, personalize more deeply, react faster. The bottleneck of just writing this stuff gets wider.
And this seems important based on the Copilot example, too. The humans are still driving, right?
Right. Completely. The report is clear. The marketing team provided the strategy, the brand voice, the fact-checking, the final creative polish. The LLM was the engine for speed and variation. Humans provided the intelligence and the quality control.
So putting this together, the message seems to be, yes, massive productivity gains are possible.
But it's about using them as assistants. Combine machine speed for the grunt work with human oversight and context. That's the sweet spot.
Okay, that sounds great. Almost too good to be true, maybe. Which probably leads us to the other side of the coin, what the report calls the flip side, when LLMs create more work.
Yeah, and this is where the optimism gets a reality check. The report argues this happens when people start relying too heavily on the LLM without proper checks and balances.
Over-reliance, and then the problems start cropping up.
Big time. The most famous one, obviously, is hallucination, the LLM just making stuff up but stating it confidently.
Right, inventing facts.
But it's not just outright fabrications, it's also just generic output.
Hmm.
Stuff that lacks any real insight or sounds bland, or subtle inaccuracies that are hard to spot but important.
And if people keep running into that,
They stop trusting the tool.
yeah.
Then you either stop using it, or you spend so much time verifying its output that you've lost any time savings. It actually creates more work.
Makes sense. Does the report have examples of this kind of chaos?
Oh yeah, a couple of really stark ones. First, the legal team disaster.
Ooh, that sounds bad. What happened there?
An internal legal team tried using an LLM, probably like ChatGPT, to help draft some internal policy documents. Seems reasonable on the surface, right? Speed up drafting.
Yeah, sounds like a good use case.
Yeah.
Until it isn't.
Exactly. The critical failure, according to the report, was that the LLM made up legal citations. It just invented plausible-sounding cases or statutes to back up the points it was making.
Oh, no.
And the team didn't catch it. They circulated this draft policy internally with fake citations.
Yikes. What was the fallout?
Embarrassment, basically. They had to issue a retraction. It damaged the legal team's credibility internally. The report really hammers this point. For high-stakes stuff like legal work, where precision and verifiable facts are everything, you cannot trust the LLM output without rigorous human validation. The risk of hallucination is just too high, and the consequences are serious.
Yeah, that's not just lost productivity, that's actively creating problems and damaging trust. Okay, what was the other example? Customer support chaos.
Right. This is a startup. They deployed an LLM-powered chatbot trained on their own internal documentation to handle customer service questions.
The goal being, presumably, scale support cheaply.
You got it. Automate responses, deflect tickets. But the major failure point, the report says, where the chatbot started giving out wrong pricing information.
Ouch. Directly to customer?
Directly to customers. So people were getting inaccurate quotes, making decisions based on bad data.
That sounds like a nightmare. What happened?
Predictably, customer churn went up. Refund requests flooded in. It directly cost them money and goodwill. Customers were angry, confused. It was chaos.
So putting an LLM directly in front of customers, especially for things like pricing or tech specs, needs extreme caution and validation.
Absolutely. If the bot can't be trusted with basic facts about the company's own products or pricing, it turns from an efficiency tool into a massive liability. The report basically says the cost of cleaning up the mess far outweighed any savings from automating support.
So these examples really drive home that point about human oversight being non-negotiable.
Totally. You have to assume the LLM could be wrong, especially on facts or details. Clear boundaries, mandatory checks. It's not optional.
It keeps coming back to that assistant model. You wouldn't just blindly trust an assistant with something critical without reviewing it.
Exactly right. And beyond these kinds of direct errors, the report digs into another problem, one that's maybe a bit more insidious. The hidden cost. Shadow AI and data leaks.
Shadow AI. What is that referring to?
It's when employees just start using public LLMs. Think the free version of ChatGPT or other readily available tools for work tasks, but without any official approval or company oversight. It's happening outside the official IT channels.
Ah, okay. Because the tools are just out there and easy to use.
Exactly. An employee gets stuck on something, writing an email, summarizing notes, maybe even fiddling with some code, and they think, oh, I'll just pop this into ChatGPT. It seems harmless.
But the risk is what they're pasting in.
Precisely. The huge risk the report flags is employees pasting sensitive company information into these public external tools.
And maybe not even realizing the danger.
Often not. They just want to get the task done. But suddenly you've got potential privacy breaches if it's customer data, security risks if it's internal credentials or IP, compliance violations, GDPR, HAPAY, internal rules. It can get bad fast.
Does the report have a case study for this too?
Yep, the financial data leak. Sounds ominous. So this was an employee, seemed well-intentioned, who wanted to, quote, polish the language on an internal report. The problem: the report contained highly sensitive internal financial projections.
Oh boy. And they pasted it.
Straight into a public LLM tool. Just copy the whole thing, numbers and all, to get it rewritten or tidied up.
And instantly, that confidential data is outside the company's control.
Gone. Sent to a third-party server.
Yeah.
The report stresses even if the employee's intent was innocent, the act itself was a major data security breach.
What were the consequences there?
Immediate violation of internal compliance, which kicked off a full security audit, which, as you know, is hugely disruptive and expensive. It created way more work and risk than whatever minor improvement they hoped to get on the report's wording.
Wow. Yeah, that really highlights the need for education, doesn't it? People just might not grasp that using these public tools isn't like using Microsoft Word's spell checker.
Exactly. They don't realize the data might leave their control or potentially even be used for training future models, depending on the tool's policy. It's a different ballgame.
So the takeaway on shadow AI isn't just ban the tools because that probably won't work.
Right. The report argues that's futile. People find workarounds. The smarter approach is clear policies, what's okay to use, what data is never okay to put in,
Oh.
plus really thorough training on why it matters. And maybe, crucially, providing sanctioned, secure internal LLM options so employees have safe alternatives for sensitive tasks.
So manage the risk through transparency, training, and providing safe channels rather than just trying to block everything.
Exactly. Control and visibility beat prohibition.
Okay, so we've seen the promise, we've seen the chaos, we've seen the hidden dangers. Let's pivot now. What does the report say is actually working? What are the best practices emerging from companies that are getting it right?
Yeah, this is the constructive part. The main finding seems to be that success comes from structure and intention. Companies doing well aren't just throwing tools out there. They have a plan. Structured rollouts, specific use cases, human checkpoints. That's what leads to higher ROI and lower risk.
Okay, so what are some of the specific strategies?
First and foremost, the report says you have to define clear use cases. Be super specific.
Meaning, like, tell people exactly what the tool is good for.
Precisely. Focus on things like summarization, creating templates, maybe initial code scaffolding, brainstorming, tasks where the LLM excels at providing a first draft or generating options.
And just as importantly, define what it's not for.
Crucial. Explicitly state. Don't use it for final decisions. Don't feed it sensitive data unless using an approved internal tool. Don't trust it for critical facts without verification.
And this works just by managing expectations.
Yeah, it tells employees where the tool shines and where the danger zones are within their job. It focuses use on reliable applications, preventing the kind of chaos we talked about earlier. Targeted application, not just a free-for-all.
Okay, what else?
A big one is the move towards internal GPTs with custom data. This is getting really important for companies with lots of unique knowledge.
So instead of just public models building or fine-tuning their own, trained on their internal stuff.
Exactly. The report uses an example of a consulting firm. They trained a custom GPT model on their huge library of internal frameworks, methodologies, past project data, all their proprietary knowledge.
And the benefit.
It became a super relevant, trusted assistant for their consultants. It understood their way of working, could pull up the right framework, provide contextually accurate info based on the firm's own experience, like a superpowered internal search and knowledge assistant.
That's a huge advantage, security-wise.
The data never leaves their control. It stays within their secure environment. It tackles the shadow AI risk head-on while also making the tool much more relevant and useful. That combo of LLM power with secure, domain-specific data is key.
Makes sense. What's the third practice? Something about champions.
Yeah, AI champions and internal playbooks. This is about supporting the people. Technology isn't enough.
So, like, creating guides and having internal experts.
Right, a media company example.
Yeah.
They created a detailed playbook, how to use LLMs for writing headlines, summarizing articles, drafting social media posts, etc., specific to their workflow.
And the champions.
They designated people in each department, early adopters, enthusiasts gave them extra training, and tasked them with helping their colleagues, answering questions, sharing tips, finding good use cases for that specific team.
Ah, so it's like building internal support and expertise organically.
Exactly. It decentralizes the knowledge, fosters peer learning, and helps tailor the general LM capabilities to specific departmental needs. It really helps with the human adoption side.
Okay, and one more best practice, something about QA.
Human-in-the-loop QA. This is about baking human review into any LLM-powered process where accuracy really matters.
Like the HR example they mentioned earlier, using it for resumes.
Perfect example. The LLM might do the initial screen, filter candidates based on keywords or criteria, saving recruiters time. But the crucial step the report highlights is that human recruiters validated every single result.
So no decisions made solely by the AI.
Never. Humans check for nuances, potential bias, make sure no one good got accidentally screened out. It leverages the AI's speed for the heavy lifting, but keeps human judgment firmly in control of the important outcomes, like fairness and quality.
Okay, so these practices together paint a picture of very active, structured management. It's not just about the tech.
Not at all. It's about defining use, securing data, enabling people, and ensuring human oversight. That seems to be the path to success.
And that point about securing data and custom models leads right into another major trend the report highlights: custom LLMs. The enterprise is getting smarter.
Yeah, this feels like the next evolution, especially for bigger organizations. They're moving beyond just calling public APIs. They're investing in training or fine-tuning models on their own data, running them internally.
And the big drivers are pretty clear from what we've discussed: less risk, more relevance.
Exactly. Control over data security and privacy is massive. And having a model that actually understands your business, your jargon, your processes, that's way more valuable than a generic model.
The report gives an insurance example, right? An underwriting assistant.
Yeah, this one's fascinating. An insurer fine-tuned an LLM on a massive data set of their historical claim decisions, internal policies, underwriting manuals, all their deep domain knowledge.
Okay. And it helps junior underwriters how?
It assists them in drafting evaluations. Underwriting is super complex, rule-bound, regulated. The LLM can quickly pull relevant past cases, policy clauses, data points from its training to help structure the evaluation.
But the human makes the final call.
Always. The report mentions a 30% speed up in the workflow, but critically, without compromising compliance. The LLM provides a powerful first draft, grounded in the company's own data and rules, but the experienced human underwriter verifies and signs off. It's applying AI to a core, complex, regulated process.
That's a powerful example. What was the other one? IT help desk.
Right, an internal co-pilot for IT help desk at a tech company. Similar idea. Train a model on internal data.
In this case, IT tickets and knowledge base articles.
Exactly. Years of accumulated wisdom on how to fix common employee tech problems within that specific company's environment.
So employees can just ask the bot for help first?
Yeah. Password reset, need to install specific software, network issues. The bot can often provide the answer instantly based on documented procedures or past ticket resolutions.
Which frees up the human IT staff for trickier problems.
Precisely. It handles the routine stuff, letting the experts focus on complex issues. And again, it only works because it's trained on the company's specific internal IT knowledge.
So the big takeaway here is, for serious enterprise use, especially where data is sensitive or domain knowledge is key, custom internal LLMs are looking like the way forward.
It seems to be a major trend. Owning your AI data pipeline and infrastructure gives you control and relevance you just can't get from public models alone.
But even if you build your own amazing internal LLM, you still need rules. Which brings us to the next section: governance, trust, and ethics, the non-negotiables.
Absolutely critical. And the report suggests this is where many companies are still playing catch-up. The tech is moving faster than the policies and oversight needed to manage it responsibly.
And the issues are pretty fundamental, aren't they? Like, who owns the output?
Yeah, that's a big one. If an LLM helps write code or marketing copy, who holds the IP? What if it accidentally spits out something that infringes on existing copyright? Because that was in its training data. It's legally complex.
And bias. How do you even spot that, let alone fix it?
Very difficult. If you train an HR screening tool on historical hiring data, and that data reflects past biases, the LLM might just learn and perpetuate those biases. Ensuring fairness is a huge challenge, technically and ethically.
And even with internal models, you still need rules about data handling, right?
Yeah.
Making sure sensitive stuff stays protected within the system.
Definitely. You need internal guardrails. Who can access what data through the model? How is PII or financial data masked or restricted? It's not just about keeping data in, but managing it inside the AI environment too.
Now, the report makes a really interesting point here. It says governance isn't a blocker, it's actually an accelerator. How does that work?
It sounds counterintuitive, but the argument is that clear rules build trust. If employees trust that the tools are being used safely, ethically, and fairly, they're more likely to adopt them confidently. If the rules are clear, deployment can actually scale faster and more safely. Trying to clean up messes after the fact because you skipped governance, that's what slows you down.
Okay, that makes sense. Proactive governance builds a solid foundation. Does the report show this in action?
Yeah, they used an example of an AI ethics committee in action. I think it was at a healthcare provider.
Makes sense for healthcare. High stakes there.
Extremely high. So this provider set up an internal review board. Any new AI project, including LLMs, has to go through this committee and pass a checklist before it gets deployed.
And the checklist covers
things like fairness checking for bias. Explainability, can we understand, at least partially, how it reached its conclusion, which is vital in medicine. And of course, Data protection protocols.
So they're building ethics and compliance in from the start.
Exactly. It prevents disasters before they happen, ensures alignment with regulations and ethical principles. It's responsible innovation in practice.
So the message is clear. Don't treat governance as an afterthought. Build it in early.
It's foundational for trustworthy AI.
And speaking of trust, all this tech and policy ultimately lands with the people, which is the final section, the human factor, trust and adoption.
Yeah, you can have the best tech and the best rules, but if your employees aren't on board or don't know how to use it, you won't get the benefits.
And employee reactions are mixed, I imagine.
Hugely varied, according to the report. Some are excited, jump right in. Others are worried.
Worried about what specifically?
Job replacement is a big one. Is this tool going to automate me out of a job? That fear is real.
What else?
Just basic distrust of the results. If they've seen or heard about hallucinations or errors, they might be skeptical. Why bother learning this if it just makes mistakes?
And maybe just not knowing how to use it effectively.
That's huge too. Having access isn't the same as having skill. They might not know how to write good prompts or how to integrate it into their actual day-to-day work.
So the report stresses that training and getting the culture right is just as important as the tech itself.
Absolutely. People need to understand the what, the how, and critically, the when. When to trust it, when to verify it, how it actually helps them in their role.
Are there examples of companies doing this human part well?
Yeah, a couple. One involved sales teams and providing prompt templates.
Okay, how did that help? Sales teams can be tough adopters sometimes.
Exactly. This particular team was resistant initially. The solution wasn't generic LLM training. It was giving them very specific pre-made prompt templates for their sales tasks.
Like,
Things like draft a follow-up email after meeting X, highlighting points A, B, C, or generate 3 responses to the objection, your price is too high.
so it made the tool immediately relevant and easy to use for their job.
Precisely. It wasn't abstract AI anymore. It was a practical assistant for specific sales activities. Adoption apparently shot up once they made that connection.
That's smart. What was the other human factor example? Something about misinformation.
Yeah, internal misinformation. This tackled that trust and expectation issue head on.
What was the problem?
In one company, the report found this belief spreading among some employees that the LLM always tells the truth, which is, dangerous.
Very. How did they fix it?
Targeted internal training, specifically educating employees about how LLMs work, their probabilistic nature, the real risk of hallucinations, and the absolute need to critically evaluate the output, especially for facts.
So building LLM literacy, basically, managing expectations.
Exactly. Fostering that critical thinking, teaching them it's often a first draft, a starting point, not infallible truth. That's vital for building a healthy, realistic relationship with these tools.
So successful adoption really hinges on addressing those fears, providing practical, relevant training, and building that culture of informed critical use.
It seems inseparable from the technical rollout. You need both.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. We started with the question from the report. LLMs in the workplace productivity boost or chaos?
And after digging through all these examples and findings, the answer seems to be, well, it depends. They can be a massive boost, supercharging productivity, creativity, even helping with complex decisions.
And it's a big, but only if they're rolled out thoughtfully, with clarity, structure, solid governance, human oversight, and a real focus on building trust and capability in your people.
Right. If you're just winging it, throwing tools out there without a strategy, the report strongly suggests you're heading for chaos. Errors, data leaks, distrust, wasted effort.
But with that strategic, human-centric approach, treating them as co-pilots, defining use cases, securing data, maybe using custom models, governing effectively, training people well, then they can become truly indispensable.
Yeah, the report kind of reframes the question at the end. It's not whether you should use LLMs anymore. They're here, they're powerful, they're accessible.
The real question now is, are you using them wisely, or are you just winging it?
That seems to be the fundamental choice companies are facing. The difference between boost and chaos lies in that intentionality.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to chew on, building on this report. Given how fast this is all moving and how critical those human and governance pieces are, if a company feels like it is currently winning it, what's the single most critical first step they need to take, like right now, to start moving towards using these powerful tools wisely? That feels like the urgent question for a lot of places.